inviting me. In a way, my presentation is going to be very similar to the topic which was presented already before me, because the same ideas about the federation, about the problem of instability which occurred after the First World War, and how to bring all of that together, and that to be in the interest, economic, social, and cultural interest of Slovenes as a very small nation, which is the fact. And this is one of the features which is very important, and all of the Slovenian ideas about the Central Europe or Europe as a whole are always marked with the fact that we are dealing with a small nation, and that's something which is very important to know. Okay. My presentation is going to be divided into 5 chapters. I'm going just to present you briefly what is the content of my contribution to this book. And first, there is going to be some observations about the thinking of Central Europe. In how many ways is it possible to think about the Europe? And then I'm going to proceed to the 3 main concepts which are also presented in my chapter, the concept of Central Europe and a nation in the middle of the Europe, which is the period of the Second World War, and the challenges of European Union, the ideas of Franz Bučar just before entering the European Union, and the challenges which are in front of the Slovene politics and Slovenes living within the European Union. And in the end, I'm going to give some kind of conclusion. One big change which occurred after the First World War was the way how the Europe was thinking within Slovene intellectual community. Because great change occurs at that time, and in Habsburg monarchy, the Slovenes were so preoccupied with the national existence, with this fear of drowning, as they said, in the German Sea, and about the process of assimilations which were going on. So they were much more focused on the protecting the existing state of Slovenes, and not to think within Habsburg monarchy, or even lower within individual regions, and not to think about a broader concept. But that suddenly changed after the First World War with the creation of successor states. Slovenes suddenly realized that they are divided into 4 countries. Majority of the ethnic territory was within Yugoslavia, approximately 2/3, and then on the western side, a large portion in Italy, on the northern side, a large portion of ethnic territory in Austria, and very small part on the east to Hungary. And then the question arises, how to enable smooth cooperation on the whole ethnic territory regarding the borders, and not political unity, but cultural unity of this space to exist as it was existed in the Habsburg monarchy. And that was one of the basic considerations which you can find in all of the concepts, all of the thinking about Europe. And here we have then just briefly these 4 concepts are some kind of contextualization of later concepts which I'm going to present, and they testify how it's possible to think about the Europe in a very different way. The first one is some kind of extension of, I'm going to talk briefly later about that, the extension about the idea which was already presented about the European Union, pan-European concept, which was widely accepted in Slovenia. And then, what is interesting, thinking about Central Europe just through economic flows, purely from the economic point of view. And the last one, which is also very interesting, is that the Europe is in constant crisis. the crisis is not something which suddenly appeared in the interwar period. No, the Europe is a continent of constant crisis, and every renewal of Europe is happening with one or another crisis and finding a synthesis about that. The Nubian Union was promoted by one of the leading Slovene politicians at that time, and he started to promote this idea already the last day of the Habsburg monarchy. We can say, even before the Habsburg monarchy broken up, it was already missed in some of the political circles. It was already presented by the ideas of Seipel, and of course, Šusteršič was the part of the same political circles within Habsburg monarchy, so it is not surprised that he tried to promote this kind of idea within Slovenian space. And another way, of course, he was thinking about Habsburg monarchy as a about the House of Habsburg as a representative of such a kind possible union, but later he gave it up, and we can say that in a way this concept was some kind of proto-intermarium concept, which was later much more developed in the 30s and during the Second World War, and as a hypothetical idea, even after the Second World War. Economy, from the very beginning, and this was also one of the features which was strongly embedded into Slovene national movement, that any political emancipation should be supported with economic emancipation. Because any political emancipation without economic emancipation would be just a torso, unfinished work. And it is not possible to have to be a political factor without economic power. And that is why important, because Čertomir Nagode, who was one of the authors of such an idea, he said that this Central European space is somehow, because of geography, because of traffic routes, which originated already in the Roman period, is somehow natural economic space. And it should be considered like that. And should be something done that this economic potential of this region could be enabled. Pan-European ideas, one of the greatest promoter and initiator of this idea within Slovenians is Andrej Gosar, very important politician, also coming from this, and he was also representative of the Catholic social politics, but he already gives another emphasis to this. If the first one, the Nubian concept, was more about how to preserve this legacy of the Habsburg monarchy, and the second one was about the economic potential of this region, he put the emphasis on one important point, and this is that only United Europe could enable some kind of cultural unification of the Slovene ethnic territory, no matter of the state borders. And that was something which, from that moment on, became very important in every consideration, what to do with the Europe, or how to deal with the Europe and European concepts within Slovene intellectual community, and that cooperation is the only way to overcome conflicts and to resolve open conflicts. And for cooperation, we need to have certain ideas what we want with that. One which was also the idea, which was also circulated among intellectuals, was how to deal with Europe as a whole. These questions became, of course, very important already in the 20s, where huge European instability was, they were faced with unstable international circumstances, and they also had they were living instability within the country. After all, living in Yugoslavia in the 1920s, this was still country in the making, so to say, and not to think about the 30s, where you have also the effect of great economic crisis. And the question arises, is Europe in decadence? Is Europe in decline? Is Europe going to disappear? What is the soul of the Europe? How can we revive the soul of the Europe? And of course, especially in the 30s, with the idea, with the dangers of fascism, dangers of Nazism, and of course, dangers of communism, which was also at that time considered as a great threat to the soul of Europe. And one of the journalists who also was a priest, but was not practicing priest business, so to say. He was primarily a journalist. He just said that, okay, crisis is something which is normal state of Europe. Because crisis is the process of bringing together different views about the development of Europe and how to find new compromise. It is not possible to find new ideas about Europe without discussions. So these discussions could be very much opposing to each other. So we just need to be patient. And he then went to the history and said that every time when there was an idea or when it seems that Europe is going to fall apart and stop to exist, there was always some kind of compromise, and this compromise enabled new ideas and new conceptualization of the Europe, and he was convinced that something is going to happen after the 1930s, when he was thinking and writing about that questions. As I said, all of these three concepts are some kind of contextualization. What we are going to see in the next part, we are going to talk about Edward Kozbek's idea about Central Europe. He was also of Catholic origins. He was highly educated for that period, studying abroad, and he was philosopher and poet. And in 1942, he imagined completely different Europe. That this was the time when already war was going on in Europe, and many peoples were feared of future. At that time, he somehow brought together all of the ideas which were circulating not only in Slovenia but in the broader Central European space, and tried to bring one concept: federation, cooperation, somehow bringing together common interest of the people and the states in Central Europe, and how to bring together the synergy which would overcome the opposing principles of national sovereignty on one side and internationalization of economy on the other side. And for him, he was also impressed by that idea that it's not possible to have smooth political or cultural development of certain state nation without support of developed economy. And since all of these countries were very small, the idea of being autarkic, even autarkic, or somehow building protectionist economic policy is a wrong way. Because if we want to build a modern, strong economy, then the cooperation is needed. Then some kind of internationalization is needed. And to achieve that, you need some kind of broader community. And you need to make the definition between the national sovereignty and the international environment. And you need to consider what you want. And when you have a clear idea what you want, in his case, economic development, which will support cultural development of Slovenes, of course, he opened also discussion what kind of national sovereignty should be transferred to some kind of Central European Federation. And the Central European, possible Central European Federation need to have very strict rules. What is common policy, which should be ruled by a common political body, and what is the question of national sovereignty. And of course, culture and political development was considered, especially culture, was considered as a matter of national sovereignty without any kind of discussion. Lambert Ehrlich, also priest, but as the other, as Terseglau, he was more university professor than in reality priest. And he was important person, not just because he was university professor, but because he was the member of the team at the peace negotiation in Paris. And someone who was dealing in the first hand how this conference was going on and what kind of compromises were accepted at that time. He was shocked. Now, with his concepts, we are talking about the Second World War. He was shocked by the policy which were implemented by occupational forces, especially by Germans, who transferred a large portion of population to Serbia, to Croatia, or to Germany, who had clear idea that this territory and the people should be Germanized as soon as possible. And not quite the same, but not far away from that, acted also Italian occupational forces and Hungarian occupational forces as well. And at that moment, when very existence of Slovenes as ethnic community was in question, he started to think, what is going to happen after the war? He was convinced that Germany could not win the war. But anyway, the new world is going to be built after the war. And where is the places for Slovenes? How to protect them that nothing similar could happen anymore? To bring some kind of small national entity to the verge of existence. So he, in fact, again, promoted some kind of idea about Central Europe Federation, we can say Danubian Federation, whatever. All of these elements are inside his thoughts, and the most closely of his concept is the concept of intermarium. So, to create one political unit between the Germany and between the Soviet Union, not to mention that both of the country at that time were considered as the greatest threat to not only to the Slovenes, but to the Central Europe as a whole. And again, here, it is very clear emphasized this division between the state authorities of the members and the authority of some kind of federation. No, this is Frince Bučar. In the period after the Second World War, there was not much ideas about the Europe. It is only in the 80s there were huge discussion about the Central Europe, especially after the publishing of Milan Kundera's famous essay, The Tragedy of Central Europe. And then there was started a discussion in Slovenia about what Central Europe in fact is. Does it exist, or it is just meteorological term, or as one of as Handke, the famous Austrian writer, once said, or it is something broader. And idea about Europe became obviously more pronounced in the 1991 with the statehood, with the independent Republic of Slovenia. What to do? Simply, what to do? Having its own country is only, at that time, was only, that is just a tool, how to manage your future. This is not the final goal of the state, just to have state and that's all. No, you need to have idea what to do with your state, what kind of function this state should fulfill. And Bučar was one who was very important. He was not so politically active, although it was important politically as well. But he was much more important because he was thinking about the concepts in the background. And from the very beginning of the starting of this discussion, which already started in the 80s, and the crucial question was entering, and of course from the very beginning was motto as all around Central Europe or Eastern Europe, Europeization, although the idea what Europeization meant at that time was completely different and opposing even from different authors. But from the very beginning, there was an idea that that independent Slovenia should join the European or Western integration with a more neutral term. And one of the very important aspects in this kind of thinking is exactly the division of Slovene ethnic territory into 4 states. And they saw the opportunity, joining the European Union, how to overcome this 1-century division, how to culturally bring together, and of course within European Union, politically and economically, together all of ethnic territories, no matter of borders. So, and that was without discussion from the very beginning, but already, but also the European Union is a challenge for small nations as Slovenes are, and Bučar's thoughts were very important in this respect, and he saw European Union on one side as a protector of side effects of globalization, so to say, side effects of capitalism, and as a very important and mighty tool which could force capitalist economy to provide society with needed social services. And his other thesis was that all, especially Slovenian states, but not only Slovenian states, that most of the states within European Union are too small that they can somehow survive within this global capitalism. And that European Union has sense only if could fulfill that moment. On one side, to protect member states from these effects of a global capitalism. On the other side, to provide some certain level of social services for citizens, and what was also important, to protect the cultural development of each country of European Union. And of course, for him, that was a question of relationships between different states within the European Union, the question of democracy within Europeans. At least for him, he said that is also the question of peace, of democracy and peace within European Union. So, just briefly to conclude, as we can see that already in 1940, Edvard Közép put the basic points which should be discussed when we are thinking about European concepts within Europe, and these concepts are valuable even up to nowadays. And what was very important that Közép as far for Slovenian intellectual community is important, was very well aware that economic side is also very important, while others are completely forgetting or unaware of economic aspects of nation, community, or state, or just briefly mentioned it and not put in enough emphasis. And the final thought could be that any transfer of a part of national sovereignty to a broader state community is legitimate only if it ensures the preservation and development of Slovene economic and cultural identity in the long run. Thank you.